So now what I want to do is I want to implement the HTML5 new form elements and input types that we just talked about in the slideshow part of this section. And you'll see we're using the contact form from the Blue Developer Directory website that we have created, or we're creating. And I've added some new fields which use the new input types, and I've also added some to the old fields that you can't see. For instance, this email address is the new email input type, and the phone number is the new tel input type. So we're going to be building this. So like every project, what I want to do is go into the project files. One second here. Okay, so we have section 3. Now if we go into the program files, you'll see the done directory and then the regular for you to start with, those pages. So I'm going to go into the done. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go into the regular, which is the, let me just open it and so you can see this is what we have up to this point, and that's the contact page. So I want to start new. Well, not new. I want to start with this stuff, and I don't want to touch the program files, so I'm just going to copy everything into this file on my desktop. Now, like I've said before, you can work in this directory if you'd like. I just don't want to touch these files because these are the actual files that you guys are going to get. So I'm going to close that and, whoop, sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. So I want to open the contact HTML of the regular site. Let me get that back here. I shouldn't say the regular site, but the current website. But then I also want to open the done. So I'm going to have to go back into, sorry, one second here. This is a little unorganized. So I get the chapter 3, and I want to open the done version of the contact form. Okay, so you'll see the difference. Now I'm just going to leave the new one open for reference, but we're going to work on this. So I'm going to open contact with Notepad++. You can use whatever editor you're going to use, and let's get started. Now let's scroll down to the form part of the page, and the first thing that I see here that we should do is to use the email, the new email input type, because right here I could type anything and it would go. Now this isn't going to go anywhere. You'll see I have it going to some script.php. It's not going to do anything because we're not using any kind of server processing, form processing. But if we use the email field, that we shouldn't even be able to get to that part. So I'm going to go over here, and you'll see we have input type text, email, name email. We want to change the type to email, which is new in HTML5. So I'm going to save that and reload this. Now if I type something like that, please enter an email address. Now that's very cool. The reason that's very cool is that that was difficult to do prior to HTML5 because you had to use different types of JavaScript functions, and and to display it, even displays nice. So that's the email input, and you'll see if we do, we'll say valid at email.com. Whoa, what the hell was that? Email.com. Okay, now this is a valid email address. It has text, then it has the at symbol, more text, a period, and three letters, and that's what it's looking for. That's how it validates it. So if we submit, and it lets us keep going. Now, like I said before, it's not going to do anything because it doesn't go anywhere, but it's allowed to pass. So next we have the tel field. We have the phone number field, and we want to use the new input type tel. So we're going to replace text with tel. Now if we save it and then we reload, you still can type anything in and it'll pass. the telephone field doesn't work like that. It's not a validation. There's nothing really here that I can show you that will display what it does. I know one good thing about it is that when you're browsing on a mobile device, on a phone, if it's the telephone, if it's marked as tel and they click in it, then your keypad will pop up to enter a number. Stuff like that. It's used in mobile technology. Nothing really here I can show you, but still, it's still good to use if you're using HTML5. So the next thing, if we look at our finished product, we have a location field, and this we're using the data list. Let me just get the W3 schools here. So W3 HTML5, and we want form elements. So we're going to use the data list element here. And as I showed you in the slideshow, I actually used this example of the browsers. So obviously we don't want browsers here. We want some locations. So what I'm going to do, one second. So we're going to add the field. All right, we're going to add an input field under the best time to call. So that'll be right here between best time to call and budget. So we'll put it our paragraphs, because we're putting all our fields and labels into paragraphs. So we'll put a label. I'll actually just copy just to save some time here, and we're going to call this location. Okay, and I'll change that, location. Now what we want to do is we want to do an input. Okay, we're going to do an input type, and the type is going to be, actually, you know what, we don't use the type. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the syntax a little bit. We want to do input list, not type. Okay, and then the list we're going to call location. Sorry about that. Now under the input we're going to have the data list tag, and the data list is going to have an ID of location. Okay, now we want to close the data list, and then in the middle we want our options, just like a select list. So option, and then we want the value of each option. I'm going to save New York. Okay. Whoops. Okay, option value New York, and the next one, I'm just going to copy this. Okay, and we'll just have New York, Boston, and Miami. Okay, so we have the input list. We have a list attribute of location, and then we have a data list with an ID of location, and then we have 3 values. So I'm going to save this, reload, and you'll see we don't have a list. It's not like this, like how we have the budget. It's just a plain old box. But if we start typing, let's put a B in, Boston pops up, and then the user can select Boston. If we put an N in, New York pops up, and if we put an M in, Miami pops up. If we have a letter that we don't have in the options, nothing happens. So pretty cool. It's this actual implementation of it isn't optimal. You know, you probably wouldn't use this here only because for one reason it's a location field, which someone could put their city, their state, their country, you don't know. So I wouldn't recommend using it like this. This is just for an example so I can show you the functionality of it. So So that's that. That's the new data list form element. So next, what do we have next? And you'll notice what I did is I put a field set around these particular fields and called it about your project, because these up here are more about the user and where they're from or contact info. So let's just put that in. We'll see the budget's the first one, so right above budget you want to put a field set, okay, and then down under color, well, we don't have color yet, so above the submit button we'll end it, field set, okay, save that, and if we reload we have the field set. Now we need the about your project title, and how we get that is we go up under the field set and we type in legend, and you put in what you want for a legend or a title, save that, reload, and now we have our little field set area. Okay, now you'll see our old form, we have a budget and we have a drop down with some options, and then on the new form we have this cool little slider where we can slide it to whatever we want. It goes from 0 to 10,000. It's not optimal to have it to 0 because obviously that's not a budget. And this actually, you probably wouldn't use this either. You wouldn't use this in this context. I think that this way is more efficient and just more user friendly, but like I said, we're just using this for tutorial purposes. So and I will tell you one thing, using HTML5 alone will only give you this slider. We need a little bit of JavaScript code to have this box to show us what it is, and I don't really understand why they wouldn't include something like that. Maybe you just can't, but just having a slider without these numbers is pretty pointless. But anyway, let's create that. Well, first of all, we're going to get rid of we're going to leave the label for budget, and we're going to get rid of this select list that we currently have and save it, and then you'll see we have nothing. So that's where we want to start our thing. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste in the JavaScript that we need. It's a really quick, easy snippet, and you should put this in the head, but this is just for tutorial purposes, so I'm just going to put it here. I'm going to put it below the paragraph, and it's just this quick little function here just to display the number or the value. Okay, so that's all set. That's all the JavaScript we need. And here we want to do is use the input. I'm sorry, one second. Just about your project. Oh, so yeah, it's the range we're using. I forgot which which input type we were using. We're going to use the range input type. So we want to do input type range. Okay, so we have range. Now, what do we need for this? We should give it a name, just because we have with the rest of them. I'm just going to say range. That name isn't needed for what we're going to do. And then what we want to do is put a minimum. Okay, so we want min, and in the final product we have 0 to 10,000. Now I don't want it 0. Let's make the minimum 500, only because this is supposed to be we're looking for a quote for a website, so it's not going to be 0. 500 is a pretty good place to start for, if it's a good company. So max we'll say 10,000, although a lot of companies will charge more than that for large interactive projects. So max, and the last thing we need to do is we need to implement this JavaScript. So we need to do onChange, which is an event handler. Okay, so when it changes, when we slide it, we need to call the function we did above, which is update text input. Okay, so that's the function, and then in the function, in the parameters, we're going to say this dot value, which is the value of this input type. Okay, if that makes sense. I know this is an HTML tutorial, but unfortunately we do need to do a little bit of JavaScript if we want that, you know, that dynamic functionality. All right, so I think that should be good. Oh, we gotta close it. We didn't close the input tag. All right, so that should do it. So let's save. Let's go and reload, and then you see the budget, the slider, and we don't have the input box. So something went wrong, because now this is what it would look like if we weren't to use any JavaScript, which is pointless. So let's see what we did wrong here. Maybe we need the semicolon. Reload. Nope. Type range. I could stop the video here and find it, but you know, you'll be doing this too, so we'll figure it out together. So we get the script, function, update text input with the val, document, get element by ID. Oh, that's the, it says text input. That's not our ID. Our ID, we don't have an ID. So in the input, we need to have an ID. So I'm just going to make it text input. Okay. Actually, that's not very user friendly. Let's do budget. Okay, we'll name it the same as the name, and then yeah, the name should also be budget. And then finally we need to change this to budget, because it's getting the value, get element by ID. See that? So it's getting this ID. So let's save that, reload, and it's still not there. Okay, what's going on here? You probably see the answer. You probably see what the problem is. Update text input. Oh, I don't know. I'm off in the clouds today. We need to have another input, another text input next to it. So sorry about that. So we're gonna do input type text. I should have had all this ready before, but you know, it happens. So input type text, and this ID is going to be the text input. Alright, and then we change this back to text input. And then this we'll keep the budget for the ID for the slider, for the range input, but the text input, now we should have a box next to this. So we'll save this, reload. Now we have a box, and there we go. So now it's working. You'll see if we go all the way down is 500, and then all the way up is 9,960, which I don't know why it's doing that. That's pretty, oh sorry, no, it goes to 10,000. Alright, so that's the range input. Let's move on from that. And if we look at our final product, next we have the checkboxes. There's nothing different there. And now we're going to add these fields onto the end. So the first one we want to do is current website. So let's go below the checkboxes, stay in the field set, and create a new paragraph. And we're going to do a label. Let's just copy one. And this is going to be, we're going to call this website. Okay. And this is going to be current website. Now we're going to do an input type equals URL and name equals website. Okay, so let's save that, reload. Okay, so it says current website. I'm going to type in just anything, and we get that. Please enter a URL. If we enter a URL, let's say, we'll just click on that, Tech Guy Web Solutions, and it lets us through. Now it's not going to work, obviously, but it lets us through. So that's the URL input type. Very easy. Easy, simple, effective. So the next thing we're going to do is the start date. So this is going to be a start date where someone can either add the date with text, and it just kind of highlights everything automatically. They could do that, or they could use the arrows. See if we reload. See, it's changing the month. Or we can use the calendar pop-up. Now this would be very difficult, not very difficult, but for a newcomer, for a new programmer to create in JavaScript, you know, a nice calendar like this. It would be pretty difficult for a new programmer, and it's just simple with HTML5. So let's go ahead and add that to our form. I'm going to create the paragraph. Okay, and we're going to get a label. And we'll call this just start. And this will be start date. Okay, so next we're going to have an input. Input. So we're going to have a type date. Very easy. Okay, we'll say name date. The name you don't need, but it's good to have. Alright, so we have a name, we have an input type of date. Save it, reload, and there's our date. We have our date picker. You know, very, very cool, very easy, and very useful. So the next thing we have is we have the number of pages, and this is going to be using the number input field. So it has to be a number, but one nice feature is you have these arrow buttons, and you can just click to the number, you know, so you don't have to touch the keyboard or whatever. So let's do that. Let's just copy this, make this a little easier on ourselves. Okay, this is going to be number of pages. We'll change this to pages, change the name to pages, and then we want to use number as the type. Okay, save, go to our form, and there we go. You know, it does let it through. If you don't have a number, you'd have to use some JavaScript for that to validate it that way. And the last thing, I think it's the last thing we have, is the color box, which is a nice pop-up color picker. And that also is extremely easy. I'm just going to copy this. And let's call this color. And this will be main website color. You probably wouldn't have this in a web design company contact form, but it's just to display the new types. So this is just going to be color. We can make the name color as well, and save that and reload, and there's our color picker. Very, very cool. Okay, so that's it. We've made this a full-fledged HTML5 form using just most of the new input types, and that's that.